Dear viewer, welcome to this lesson where we are going to discuss something very important in our subject of social studies. My name is John OMODING, teacher trainer, and today we are going to discuss what we call apartheid policy. Apartheid policy. Someone can pronounce it as apartheid, so you don't have to get confused on pronunciation. What's important is for you to note the spelling. So we are going to look at the British, that is in South Africa, when they introduced this system that we call apartheid policy. By definition, the simplest way we can define apartheid is that this was a system which was brought by the British, that is the whites, of separating the Africans from them. So in other words, they were separating the Africans based on, or they were separating people based on their color. And that is what we mean by race. So that's where we have gotten this word racial. So we can say apartheid means racial segregation. Apartheid means racial segregation, which means the people were grouped or separated according to their race, that is according to their color, that is in South Africa. Now, the other thing we are going to understand is that how was this apartheid practiced? How were the people separated? The ones who were in Africa, those are the Africans, together with some other races that had lived there. For example, we have some Asians and that. So one, there was the British passed laws which put themselves in superior government positions, which means that these other races, these other people were not supposed to hold top government positions. That is one way apartheid was applied. Then two, marriage. Here says marriage between the whites and the blacks or the non-whites was considered as a criminal offense or a criminal act, and one would be punished seriously for that, which means it was not allowed to be or to happen. That is between the whites and other races in South Africa. Then three, the Africans were denied quality education. Africans were denied quality education, meaning that quality education was only for the side of the whites. Then the other one that we are going to be looking at is that there were facilities that were not supposed to be shared when it comes to this by the whites and the Africans. So we can add saying facilities were not supposed to be shared between the whites and the blacks. So another way apartheid policy was applied was that we have facilities. When we talk of these facilities, we look at things like schools, we look at things like hospitals, roads, maybe settlement estates, playgrounds, and other facilities. So what we shall understand is that during that time, they separated facilities that the whites were to use from those that the Africans were to use. We need to realize that all this issue came because the British did not want to share facilities, or they did not want to mix with the blacks. So you find that they were able to bring these separation schools set aside for the for the children of the blacks. Hospitals the same, meaning if you are non-African, you're not supposed to go to get treatment on the side of their hospitals for the whites. Then coming to the roads, the same. If the road is constructed for the Africans, make sure that one is where you're supposed to be using. And remember, these were roads in poor states. So you find that the highways, the nice roads, were reserved for the whites. So as a result, you find that it was not something which was good. Next, they were not supposed to share settlement areas or apartments. So you could find that they had to separate. The Africans also settle in one area, then also them also settling in another area, such that they could not come and mix up. Then the playgrounds, these are areas where, like for sports and the rest. So you will find that they were not supposed to share them with the whites. Then the other one, apart from this one not separating, we shall be looking at what we call pass slips. So let's call it pass outs, meaning that the Africans were supposed to move. For you to get out of that area where they have confined you, you were supposed to move out with a pass out. That is with something, with an identity card which allows you, or which shows you, or which identifies you. Without that, then you will be taken as someone who is not following the rules. So that was another one. Then lastly, we are going to look at what we call these people, these Africans. Remember, we have said they were confined in one area, and also the whites in one area. So we are going to look at the issue of what we call Bantu Stands. Bantu Stands being introduced. Bantu Stands being introduced, and this one was to house the Africans. Bantu Stands introduced to house Africans. So we shall also say that the other one is that the other way apartheid was applied is that the Africans were gazetted in what we call Bantu Stands. We shall come back to look at Bantu Stands within the shortest time possible. But right now, let's first look at the factors that led to apartheid policy. We are looking at what made these whites to separate, or not to mix, or not wanting to mix up with their Africans. One, we say that they needed land. They needed land to settle and to practice agriculture. So there was no way they could get this land without chasing people first. So what they did was to gazette people in what we call in the Bantu Stands. Then they were now able to get the land that they were to use for settlement and for agriculture. Two, the other one is that they wanted to get, to have time or access to exploit the resources in Africa, to exploit the wealth in Africa. So they made sure they had to first disorganize the people such that they could not say anything. Remember, we said they were not given those higher positions in the government, so no one could say a word. They now had to do whatever they wanted in the country. Then the third one says that there was need to reduce on competition with the Africans. They were seeing it as a threat when the Africans are also there. So the best option was to first of all confine them, scare them, intimidate them, such that they will not say anything, and we will be able to achieve that. Then the last one was fear of the whites. Fear of the whites, that they were few. They feared that for them they were few. That's what we call minority. Fear of the whites, that they were the minority than the Africans and the Asians. So they realized that, and they were like, the best option is to gazette these people and deny them access to political positions, such that we shall be able to make now our own laws that they will not be able to question. So this is what led to what we call apartheid policy in South Africa. Like I say, that we have to understand what we call the Bantu Stands, and that is what our next subheading is going to be. Let's understand what we mean by Bantu Stands. So we are going to have a subheading, Bantu Stands. So when we look at this word Bantu Stands, we shall be able to get two words from it. One, we have the word Bantu, Bantu, which we normally say this means the people. And in this context, the whites considered all those people who were in South Africa as the Bantu. So for them, they say this one, we're having the Bantu meaning people, then the stands, these are now the homelands. Homelands. So, for that, we shall be able to understand the definition of Bantu stands. So, in our normal and easy understanding, we can say Bantu stands were gazetted. Bantu stands were gazetted homelands. Were gazetted homelands for the non-working blacks in South Africa. I have said Bantu stands were gazetted homelands for the non-working blacks in South Africa. So we shall be able to understand that since we say that one of the ways apartheid was applied was that the Africans were gazetted in these homelands that we have called the Bantu stands, then we need to note that for these people to be able to leave the Bantu stands, if you wanted to get out, like maybe going to the market, going to the hospital, whatsoever, or wherever you want to go, then you had to make sure you move out with that pass out, that identity card that shows you. Without that, that would be a serious offense. So that is about Bantu stands. We shall be having two things here. We shall be looking at Bantu stands. Then there is one also that we shall look at, we call it townships. Townships. Or a township, if it is one. So sometimes we can be asked a question that is to differentiate between a Bantu stand and a township. So in our understanding, we shall be saying that the Bantu stands, the point is here. The Bantu stands were gazetted homelands for the non-working blacks in South Africa, meaning those in the villages. Then when we come to townships, we shall be looking at townships like Soweto. And the definition of a township, one can say that these were gazetted, they were also gazetted areas for the for the working blacks now. These ones were for those who were in towns, like in Pretoria, Johannesburg, those ones who were working there. Remember, these British wanted the Africans to help them do their work. So as a result, there was no way they could do away completely with the Africans, much as they could gazette them, but still there was time for them to get them to help do their work. So we are made to understand that there are those who are working in towns, like I have mentioned Pretoria, Johannesburg, Durban. So such people, such Africans, were also given their separate apartments in the towns without mixing with the whites. And those are the ones we call townships. And I have given you Soweto as the largest township that was created in South Africa. Now, let's look at what were the examples of these Bantu stands. Examples of Bantu stands. There is always a question that they can ask us. that which was the first Bantu stand to be created in South Africa? Which was the first Bantu stand? There we shall be using this TBVC, so that we shall be able to get the first 4 Bantu stands, TBVC, where T stands for Transkei, both Farsana. Then we have the V is Venda, and finally C, Siske. Siske. So we shall be able to get the first 4 Bantu stands, which later on were granted independence. We have Transkei, both Tswana, Venda, and we have Siske as the examples of the Bantu stands that were created. We have others because we shall be looking at around 10 of them. So let's add others this way. We have the Gazankulu, we have the Leboa, we have the Pakwa, and Ngwane, Kwa Ndebele, then lastly we have the KwaZulu. So these are the Bantu stands that were created to house, that is, where the Africans were to be staying, such that they could not mix with the whites. Now, we need to know that for these people to live here, like we said at the beginning, they had to move out with those identity cards, which later on we shall be looking at as becoming a burden to the Africans, and they started complaining, bringing other issues that we shall be looking at in the next lessons. Now, let's look at the characteristics of these Bantu stands. What were the characteristics of the Bantu stands? Characteristics of Bantu stands. So one of the characteristics you are going to have in Bantu stands is what we call poor sanitation. Poor sanitation. Remember this way, if we were to compare these Bantu stands with today, maybe we shall be looking at this as something like slum areas, slums. So when we look at the life in the slums, you will find that things are not good there. Poor sanitation, that's poor hygiene. There is overcrowding. There was overcrowding in these Bantu stands. No electricity. There was no electricity. There was no electricity for these people. Then, of course, in slums, we have high crime rates. High crime rates. And also shortage of water and those other problems. So those are the things that were happening in the Bantu stands. So because of this, of course, like I said, people started making noise and they began showing their noise, their grievances, to the people such that people were to come and help. So we are now going to look at the reaction of people because of these things happening. And in the reaction of people, we are going to be talking of very many people, very many names. And one name we shall be mentioning is Nelson Mandela, that I know you have ever heard of. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a South African who joined the rest of the Pan-Africanists to demand for the fair lives of the South Africans. Meaning they were seeing these things happening and they considered them as evil practices that were not good to humankind or to people. So as a result, these guys started to demonstrate, to lead protests, and at the end of it all, we shall say Nelson Mandela was a freedom fighter because he helped to fight for the rights of the people in South Africa. The whites saw him as a threat, and we shall be saying that he was arrested and imprisoned for 27 years. That is in the Robben Islands. In the Robben Islands, where he was later on released, and by 1994, South Africa was now given independence under the leadership of Nelson Mandela. But before that, we also need to understand in this subtopic, we have also what we call frontline states. Frontline states. So we shall be able to ask ourselves, what do we mean by frontline states? Now, the frontline states, a state is like a country. So here we are going to say that these were countries, more so those neighboring countries to South Africa, that were seeing what was happening in the country as something which was so bad to humans. So other neighboring countries came to support South Africa. And those are the ones we call frontline states. So we shall be saying frontline states are countries. Let's begin saying are neighboring countries to South Africa, that helped to fight against apartheid, that helped to fight against apartheid. So we are looking at the neighboring countries of South Africa. For example, we have countries like Botswana, we have countries like Zambia, including Tanzania. Because here we shall be having the leader of these frontline states, the leader that was the president of Tanzania by that time, that was Julius Nyerere. Julius Nyerere. So if the question is asking you for the leader of the frontline states, then the answer is given. That was Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania by that time. Now, lastly, we need to look at how did these countries, these frontline states, help South Africa to fight apartheid? Or what contribution did the frontline states put towards the end of apartheid? Now, the contributions we are going to have here, let me write them. Contributions of frontline states. Like I said, we are looking at how did the frontline states help to fight against apartheid. Number one, these states helped in training, by training soldiers to fight. That is, they could train soldiers. These countries helped in giving or training some people, their soldiers, who could be sent or who were sent to South Africa to help to fight the whites. That is, in an attempt to fight, to end apartheid. Then two, they could also help them by supplying logistics, such as food, uniforms, and others. Which means that another way they helped South Africa was that they could help supply them with the food, with the uniforms, with the guns, and other equipment needed in the fighting. So at the end of it all, you will find that they helped. Then three, they helped to educate the young people. They helped to educate the young people of South Africa. They helped to educate the young people of South Africa. By so doing, they were able to help these South Africans to overcome or to come out from that bondage that we call apartheid policy. Thank you so much for sharing that little information with me. We meet again next time. Thank you.